Have you ever been abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you the most? The ones who should have stood by you during your darkest hour? That's exactly what happened to me when my husband died suddenly at 38, and my family chose my brother's birthday party instead of supporting me at the funeral. But life has a way of balancing the scales. When they discovered what my husband left behind, their faces said everything, especially when they realized I now owned the family estate they'd always promised to my brother. My name is Anya, and I'm 30 years old. 5 years ago, my world shattered in ways I never thought possible. If you've ever felt betrayed by family, hit that like button and subscribe to hear how karma finally caught up with mine. The wake and the cold shoulder, the November wind, cut through my black dress as I stood beside Leo's casket, completely alone. An aneurysm had stolen my husband without warning, without giving us a chance to say goodbye. The funeral home felt cavernous and empty, just a handful of Leo's colleagues and a few of our friends scattered among the rows of chairs. The faces I desperately needed to see were missing. My parents, my brother Brent, my extended family, all celebrating his 35th birthday instead. Mrs. Davison, the kind-faced funeral director, approached me with gentle concern. "Is there anything I can get for you, dear? Some water, perhaps?" I forced a weak smile. "No, thank you. I'm all right." But I wasn't all right. I was drowning. The hole in my chest where Leo should be felt endless, and my family's absence was like salt in that raw wound. They had always favored Brent, the athlete, the charmer, their golden child. I was just quiet, artistic Anya, forever relegated to the sidelines of my own family. A wave of nausea hit me suddenly. I stumbled, and Mrs. Davison steadied my arm. Perhaps he should sit down for a moment. As I sank into a nearby chair, the funeral home door opened. My mother, Dolores, finally appeared, 3 hours into the 5-hour wake. Her expression wasn't grief or compassion. No, her face was tight, eyes darting around as if searching for the quickest exit. "Anya," she said, her voice devoid of warmth, "I'm so sorry for your loss." The words fell flat, rehearsed. I searched her eyes for a flicker of genuine empathy, but found nothing. "Where were you, Mom?" My voice barely reached a whisper. "Where is everyone?" She shifted uncomfortably, adjusting her designer purse. "Brent's birthday. It's a big one. We couldn't just not be there." My heart didn't just break, it shattered. "You chose a birthday party over your son-in-law's funeral?" That's when she said it. The words that would forever change our relationship. "Your brother needs us more than your dead husband," she spat, venom lacing every syllable. "Brent is alive, Anya. He needs our support. Leo is gone. There's nothing we can do for him now." The air between us turned to ice. I felt something snap inside. Not my heart this time, but my tolerance. A burning rage flooded my veins, but I refused to break down. "Not here, not in front of her." "Get out," I said, my voice suddenly cold and steady. "Get out of here, and don't come back." She didn't argue, she simply turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, leaving me alone with my grief, my anger, and Leo's body. Has anyone in your family ever said something so cruel you knew you'd never see them the same way again? Leave a comment below. I read them all and would love to hear your stories. The reading of the will. 3 weeks after the funeral, I invited my family to my home for the reading of Leo's will. Part of me wanted to shut them out completely. But another part, a small, stubborn part, wanted them to witness what Leo had built, the success they had dismissed, the life they had ignored. Leo had been a brilliant architect. He'd built his firm from nothing, transforming it into one of the most respected in the region. I knew I was the sole beneficiary, but even I had no idea of the extent of his wealth until that day. My parents and Brent arrived right on time. Funny how they could make it to a will reading, but not a funeral. Their faces barely concealed their curiosity and greed. Dad kept glancing around our modern glass and steel home, mentally calculating its value. Mom's eyes lingered on the original artwork adorning our walls. Brent slouched in his chair, feigning disinterest while stealing glances at the leather portfolio Mr. Harding, Leo's lawyer, had placed on the table. "Shall we begin?" Mr. Harding adjusted his glasses, his stern expression giving nothing away. I nodded, hands clasped tightly in my lap. The black dress I wore felt like armor now, not the fragile shell it had been at the funeral. Mr. Harding's voice filled the room as he detailed Leo's assets. The house, to me. The investments, to me. The business, to me. With each item, I watched my family's expressions shift. Mom's brow furrowed deeper. Dad's jaw tightened. Brent's eyes narrowed to slits. Then Mr. Harding paused, removing his glasses for dramatic effect. And finally, he said, there is a clause regarding the disposition of the family estate in Oakhaven. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The Oakhaven estate had been in my family for generations, a sprawling property with historic significance and considerable value. It had always been understood that it would eventually pass to Brent, the male heir, as outdated as that concept was. Leo, being of sound mind and body, has stipulated that upon his death, the Oakhaven estate shall be transferred to his wife, Anya Petrova, in recognition of her unwavering support and love. The silence that followed was absolute. I stared at Mr. Harding in disbelief. Leo had never mentioned this to me, never hinted that he'd somehow acquired the legal right to transfer the estate that had been promised to Brent. Then the storm broke. That's impossible, Brent roared, slamming his fist on my mahogany table. That estate is rightfully mine. It's been in our family for centuries. Leo had the legal right to dispose of his assets as he saw fit, Mr. Harding replied calmly. The will is binding. My mother's face contorted with rage. You scheming little witch, she shrieked, pointing at me. You manipulated him, didn't you? You always were jealous of Brent. The accusation stung, but I found myself rising to my feet, a strange calm washing over me. Get out, I said, echoing my words from the funeral. Get out of my house. I emphasized each word, letting the full weight of ownership sink in. This is my house now, and I don't want to see any of you ever again. Dad started to protest, but I cut him off. The next time I see any of you, it will be too soon. You chose Brent over me my entire life. You chose his birthday over my husband's funeral. Now you can live with the consequences. They stormed out, faces twisted with fury and resentment. As the door slammed behind them, I collapsed onto the sofa, tears streaming down my face. Not from sadness, but from release. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to them. I had broken free. Building a new life. The following months passed in a whirlwind of activity. I threw myself into managing Leo's architecture firm, determined to honor his legacy. To everyone's surprise, especially mine, I discovered I had a natural talent for business. The creativity I'd previously channeled into art found new expression in innovative building designs and client solutions. I immersed myself in Leo's world, learning everything I could about architecture and design. His team, initially skeptical of the boss's widow, soon became my strongest allies. Together we pushed boundaries, won awards, and expanded the firm's reach. But my biggest project was Oakhaven. The historic estate had been neglected for years, a dusty monument to outdated traditions. I hired a team of the best contractors and began a complete renovation. We preserved the estate's historic charm while adding modern elements that reflected my own aesthetic vision. Solar panels gleamed on the southern roof. The old stables transformed into a state-of-the-art design studio. The sprawling gardens, once formal and rigid, bloomed with native wildflowers and sustainable landscaping. I even converted part of the property into a vineyard, planting rows of carefully selected grapes that would thrive in the local climate. Oakhaven became my sanctuary, my canvas, my redemption. I filled it with art, with music, with life. I hosted gatherings for friends and colleagues, for community organizations, for anyone who brought positive energy into my world. If you've ever had to rebuild your life from scratch, you know it's both terrifying and liberating. Double tap that like button if you've experienced that bittersweet freedom. The tables turn. 5 years passed. My architecture firm flourished, with offices now in 3 cities and a reputation for innovative, sustainable design. The Oakhaven Vineyard produced its first award-winning vintage, with bottles selling in upscale restaurants across the country. I had transformed grief into purpose, rejection into success. Then came the phone call. I was reviewing designs in my home office when my assistant informed me my mother was on the line. I hesitated, finger hovering over the button. We hadn't spoken since that day in my living room. Not a birthday card, not a holiday greeting, nothing. Put her through, I finally said. Anya, darling. My mother's voice was weak, pleading, a tone I'd never heard from her before. We need your help. My spine straightened. What do you want, Mom? It's Brent. He's in trouble. He's lost everything. His business, his house, everything. A flicker of satisfaction sparked inside me. Brent had always been reckless with money, convinced his charm would carry him through life. Now he was facing the consequences of his arrogance. And why should I care? My voice remained cool, controlled. Please, Anya, she begged. He has nowhere else to go. His wife took the kids to her parents. Can't he stay at Oakhaven? Just until he gets back on his feet? I let the silence stretch between us, savoring the role reversal. Now they needed me. Now I held the power. I'll think about it, I said finally, and hung up. For days, I wrestled with my conscience. The wounded part of me wanted to refuse, to let them suffer as I had suffered. But another part, a stronger part, recognized that holding on to anger only poisoned my own soul. Leo wouldn't have wanted that for me. The invitation. 1 week later, I called my mother back. I'll allow Brent to stay at Oakhaven, I said, my voice firm, but under my conditions. Her relief was palpable. Oh, Anya, thank you, you're a lifesaver. Don't thank me yet, I cut in. There are rules. He'll live in the guest house, not the main house. He'll contribute to the vineyard's operation, and he will treat me and my staff with respect. 1 strike, and he's out. She agreed without hesitation, desperate to secure a roof over her golden boy's head. When Brent arrived at Oakhaven, I barely recognized him. His designer clothes had been replaced by worn jeans and a fading polo. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by slumped shoulders and downcast eyes. When he looked up at me, standing on the front steps of what was once his family estate, I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Humility. Welcome to Oakhaven, I said, my voice neutral. Your home is this way. I led him to the guest house, modest compared to the main house but still more luxury than most people ever experience. His eyes widened as he took in the tasteful furnishings, the fully stocked kitchen, the view of the vineyard stretching to the horizon. This is very generous of you, Anya, he said, his voice rough with emotion. It's a job, not charity, I replied. You start work in the vineyard tomorrow at 6 a.m. John, the vineyard manager, will show you what to do. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air between us. For everything. I didn't turn around. Words are cheap, Brent. Show me with actions. And to my surprise, he did. Living under my roof. The first few months were tense. Bright struggled to adapt to physical labor, his soft hands blistering in the vineyard. He chafed under John's authority, unused to taking orders instead of giving them. He resented having to report to his little sister, the sibling who had always been an afterthought. But slowly something began to change. The physical work sculpted his body, burning away the softness of privilege. The discipline of the vineyard's schedule gave structure to his chaotic life. The simple satisfaction of seeing tangible results from his labor gave him a purpose he'd never known in his cushy corporate job. And he watched me. Watched how I led team meetings with quiet confidence. How I treated the housekeepers with the same respect as visiting architects. How I made decisions based on what was right, not what was profitable. 6 months after his arrival, Brent approached me as I worked late in my office. Can I talk to you for a minute? He asked, hovering in the doorway. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat, hands fidgeting. I've been thinking a lot about everything, he began. About how Mom and Dad always favored me. About how I took that as my due, instead of questioning it. I remained silent, letting him find his words. Watching you run this place, seeing what you've built, I've realized how wrong I was about you. You're not just successful, you're respected. People don't follow your orders because they have to. They do it because they believe in you. He met my eyes directly for the first time since arriving at Oakhaven. "I want to earn your respect, Anya. I want to be worthy of being here, not just as your charity case, but as someone who contributes." I studied him, searching for any hint of manipulation or deceit. But I saw only sincerity and a genuine desire to change. "Then show me," I said simply. "Show me you can be more than just a taker. Show me you can give back." And to my ongoing surprise, he did just that. If you've ever had to swallow your pride and start over, you know exactly how challenging and transformative that journey can be. Comment below if you've experienced that kind of rebirth, a new beginning. Over the next year, Brent threw himself into the vineyard's operations with unexpected passion. He studied viticulture, took courses in winemaking, and developed innovative techniques that improved our harvest. The vineyard workers, initially skeptical, grew to respect his work ethic and genuine interest in their expertise. My parents gradually re-entered the picture, not with demands or expectations, but with tentative olive branches. Mom volunteered at community events hosted at Oakhaven. Dad used his business connections to help expand our wine distribution. One evening, as sunset painted the vineyard gold, I found myself walking among the vines with Brent. We hadn't had a real conversation in months, both too busy with our respective responsibilities. "Remember when we were kids?" he said suddenly. "We used to play hide and seek in the old barn?" I smiled despite myself. "You always hid in the same spot, behind Grandpa's tractor. And you always pretended not to find me right away." He laughed softly. "You were looking out for me even then." We stopped at the edge of the property, looking back at the estate house glowing warmly in the dusk. "You've transformed this place," Brent said. "It's better than it ever was, more alive." "It wasn't just me," I admitted. "The team made it happen. John, the contractors, the vineyard workers, even you." He turned to face me, eyes serious. "I know I can never undo what happened at Leo's funeral, or make up for all the years our parents put me first. But I want you to know that I see you now, Anya. I see how extraordinary you are." The words unlocked something in my chest, a knot of resentment I hadn't realized I was still carrying. "Thank you," I said simply. Back at the main house, I found myself lingering in front of Leo's photograph in my study. His kind eyes seemed to look back with approval. "You be proud," I whispered. "Not just of what I built, but of who I've become." 5 years after that devastating day at the funeral home, I had created something beautiful from the ashes of grief. Not just a successful business or a thriving estate, but a life filled with purpose and, surprisingly, reconciliation. I had honored Leo's legacy, not just by preserving his wealth, but by embracing his spirit of generosity and compassion. I had found my place in the world, not as the rejected sister, but as the triumphant architect of my own destiny, and that, more than any inheritance, was the true treasure. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button for more stories of family karma and redemption. Remember, success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Thank you for listening to my story.